So after all this time, it's about two people finding love and coming together in difficult times. They're both dealing with personal crisis and they've known each other for several years, but uh, like 7 years ago, it wasn't the right time for them. And then they meet in their fighting with their personal demons right now, and it just works out for them. So I've written this book from two perspectives, a male and a female perspective, which are both the protagonists. So Lavanya is a 23-year-old lawyer who works at a law firm in New York. And she comes back home when she discovers that she has HIV. And Shaurya is also based in California right now, and he comes back home for a vacation because it's his little sister's wedding, and he's dealing with a personal crisis because he's faced with the biggest betrayal of his life. Like his girlfriend cheats on him with his ex-boyfriend, so it's also about that. So they both meet each other after several years, and then the story goes into how they connect with each other again after all these years. Yeah, the order is that it begins in New York and California, and then they come home. Like the first chapter is set in the US, and then they come home, and the rest of it is based in New Delhi, and it follows that order. So for Lavanya, this story deals with her trying to run away from all her problems. So to the extent that 7 years ago, she went to the US to run away from the family problems that she was facing. And Shaurya kind of subconsciously followed her. He was her best friend back then. And so that's why it's US, because she went to study there and he kind of follows her. And then they reach a point where they both have to come back home, like there's nowhere else to go for them, and they meet again. I've been living in New York for a year now. I'm doing my MFA in creative writing, and I feel like that place has so much energy, and I wanted to send Lavanya to a place where she looks for at least a new future, like a new life. And so New York was very fitting for me because she was supposed to be this hotshot lawyer in a big law firm, and it just kind of worked out because of where I was and what my story demanded from me. And New York is such a wonderful place, and I wanted this book to be set in New Delhi and New York because I feel like New Delhi is the New York of India. For Lavanya, I think the main theme for me was running away from one's problems, because that is the first instinct that comes to me whenever I'm faced with something, that I would avoid it as much as possible. I would not want to deal with it. So I wanted to put my character into a situation where she cannot run away, because she gets HIV and it's always going to be a part of her. Either she's going to die from it or live with it, but it's always going to be there. So that's what drove me to create the story around Lavanya. With Shaurya, I wanted to really write about infidelity, but not from a girl's point of view, because I think it was important for me to explore how a guy deals with something like that. So, these two are the main, central themes, and then they come together, and it deals with how their problems, each other's problems, become their own, and they get closer in the process. It was a bit challenging because whenever we are dealing with two central, main perspectives, it's very important to keep their voices distinct, and it was kind of difficult in the beginning. But once I found Shaurya's voice, it wasn't all that much challenging, and especially because I've also written another book from a boy's point of view, so it's not like I'm doing this for the first time. So men generally, especially my character, is more practical and he sees things as they are. and women tend to like, and especially like Lavanya in this story tends to like run away and like lives in denial. So they were like very distinct characters. In like basically they were like very different from each other anyway. So it was kind of not that much challenging for me to keep their voices distinct, because in my head it was clear the kind of people they were. So for to build up Shaurya, I knew that he has to be this very practical person who sees things as they are, and he doesn't make up or weave stories around a certain thing that doesn't exist. For Lavanya, I have her parents, because she's dealing with a crisis that she goes back to after 7 years, and it has to do with her father and the way it has changed the dynamics between her and her mother too. And with Shaurya, it's his ex-girlfriend and ex-best friend. So I don't have a lot of characters in the book, because it just is a story about these people, and I've tried to keep useless characters away. So it begins in the first chapter itself. You realize that you get most of the backstory, and then you realize that these people are moving, like going to India, and this one person like Lavanya might not come back, and from there she has this whole bucket list that she thinks that is going to give her some kind of fulfillment. But so it goes slow in the beginning, and then it reaches a point where in the middle, I actually did not plan that to happen, but around chapter 11, this is like 20 chapters. So around chapter 11, there's this high where this interaction between Lavanya and Shaurya happens, and things from the past come up. And it sort of like happened without me intending for it to happen, and we reach a high over there, and then it kind of settles down again. And towards the end, in the last 3 chapters are, I think, the most crucial, because we solve a lot of things that have been like central to the story, like the thing between Lavanya and her father, and then her telling Shaurya and Lavanya about her HIV, and Shaurya finally realizing whether or not he's over his ex, and all these things, like the main things that the book dealt with came together in the last 3 chapters. So those 3 chapters are like really crucial. For me, I think after all this time is about accepting your past and accepting the fact that you are who you are because of all the things that have happened to you, and you cannot, I mean, it seems like something that you might want to do, like to forget it and move on, but it's not possible. It's going to keep coming back to you unless you resolve it or accept that it happened. So yeah, that's the thing that drove me kind of to write this. Yeah, I think there could be several things that a reader might feel this book is about, and it also depends, like that's the thing about books, that every reader can have their own perspective, and they might, because depending on their personal experiences, every book could be different for every reader. HIV in this book kind of signifies something that you cannot run away from. So that's where the idea came from. But after I picked it up, I realized that I need to do a lot of research, because this is something, especially in India, something of a taboo, and people don't want to talk about it. And the general perception, I think, is that people think that HIV and AIDS are the same thing. I really thought that it needs to be talked about in a very sensitive manner, so I did a lot of research. I read a lot of books on HIV and articles. So even though I do not push information on the readers, I knew that everything that I wrote has to be medically correct, so I did research for that. And I knew that I might face a lot of backlash because of picking up such a disease, but I felt like it was central to the theme to have HIV as the guiding thing. I think most readers are sensitive enough to understand why this is in the book, and the way that it has been dealt with isn't something you can get offended by, and you shouldn't probably. But you have all sorts of readers, and some people have really strong opinions about how things should be done, and maybe they may not want to read about this. For me, all my books are really about the characters, and I feel really connected to them because, I feel that a story is about the characters. I decide on what my characters are going to be first before deciding the plot of the story, and I get really connected to them because I find myself like crying and laughing while writing the book. So it's a fun journey. So it's like the real people to me. Yeah, The Promise was a romance. Accidental Love was a romance. There was a couple campus fiction that I wrote with Durjoy, and there was a non-fiction book which was about entrepreneurs, which was an interesting experience. But I feel like writing about relationships is what comes naturally to me, and it like really makes me want to write. Like this is something that I really want to write about. I like playing with like emotions. So yeah.